What's up everybody, Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. But before we get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream here on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time instead of Sunday, since Sunday is Easter here in America. So I'm going to do it on Saturday, and I might not go quite as long for that one because I'm still working through a cold, so apologies also if I'm a little off here in this video as far as the sound. But anyway, getting in here to the news this week. So first, Toyota has shown us our first glimpse of the 2025 4Runner this week on Instagram. And what we can see here is the same blue paint from the Land Cruiser, a lower badge there, and taillights that appear to be an evolution of the current 4Runner. The choice for silver there on the lower bumper is also surprising, but I'm guessing we're looking at a more luxurious trim here and not one of the off-road versions. If past Toyota teaser campaigns are any indication, we may get more teasers here over the next few weeks. I'm assuming we'll have a reveal relatively soon because Toyota usually doesn't drag out their reveals too long. So I'm guessing we'll get something here fairly soon. The safe bet all along here is it's going to be a Tacoma with a bed on the back as far as mechanicals and the stuff underneath the skin goes. We'll see if that turns out to be true or not, but, just to, get your expectations ready, I'd expect Tacoma stuff, with the 4Runner body. But anyway, interesting to get that teaser and interesting to know that that is something coming here pretty soon. And last week I showed off a few pictures of the Kia K4 that was debuted, just a few pictures there in Korea. And so now we have more info and pictures of the regular sedan this week. But the biggest surprise here this week was the surprise reveal of the hatchback version, which wasn't actually at the New York Auto Show, but they just showed a few pictures of it. And it's pretty awesome. They're going to offer this here. So, we don't have all the details or anything. And Kia just says that it's coming next, but that it won't, be launched, I think, at the same time as the sedan. So, but it's awesome that this is coming, and, we didn't have a hatch for the last generation here in the States. And it's great that they're bringing that back, even though hatches are probably not super popular in that segment. And it's really cool, and I'm looking forward to getting more info, but it's most likely going to be, carryover of all the same stuff from the sedan. And we did get all the sedan info here this week, thankfully, at the New York Auto Show. So, moving on to the sedan here. We now know that it's 2.7 inches longer, and it's also 1.9 inches wider, which are pretty big changes for a compact car. And as you'd expect, it gets increases in rear seat space, but something you wouldn't expect is that somehow it loses a little bit of trunk space, which seems odd. But I still think it looks great, but let me know what you think about the looks in the comments below. And maybe that's why they have the hatch version, is they're knowing that some people are going to be like, wow, the trunk's smaller than before, and at least they'll be like, well, hey, we also have a hatch if you want more space, and maybe that'll help that a little bit. But inside, the dash is very close to what we see in the EV9, including a total of 30 inches of combined screen space. You also can get a dark green interior, but unfortunately that's only on the EX version. The GT line trim won't offer that. Speaking of the trims, the regular K4 gets a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that has 147 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque and runs through a CVT, so pretty much the same carryover from before. Same goes for the GT line, which gets the 1.6-liter turbo 4, just like the old Forte, but now does just 190 horsepower, a little less than before, and 195 pound-feet of torque. That one also now runs through an 8-speed torque converter automatic instead of the old car's 7-speed dual clutch, so it should make it a little bit smoother around town and stuff. And just like the last generation, this one gets a torsion beam rear suspension on the lower engine, with the turbo one getting a multi-link rear. It'll go on sale in the second half of this year, but there's no pricing for these yet. And Genesis also had some cool reveals here at the New York Auto Show, and they're all pretty big surprises. So first was the introduction of the Magma Performance models, and they don't want to call it a sub-brand, they say, but it's kind of a sub-brand. They say it's an extension of Genesis, kind of just to say that it's not going to be as hardcore as like M and AMG, pretty much. They're still going to have a focus on Grand Touring, but give you the performance, and they look like pretty serious performers here. So what we're seeing here is the GV60 Magma and the G80 Magma that were both shown in a technical concept form, but look pretty much production ready. We have no performance details for either of these, by the way, but it's clear that these aren't just appearance packages, because you can see they have some serious hardware under the skin there, and even though the appearances are certainly more aggressive. But first, don't get too excited about that G80 Magna, because Genesis says this one will have an extremely limited production run, and for some reason it's only going to be available in the Middle East. So forget about that one unless you live there. Not sure what the reasons are for that decision, but So anyway, yeah, just don't get excited about that one. The rest of us will have to settle for the GV60 Magma, at least for now, until other models come, which seems like it'll be a more regular production thing, and chances are it'll get the same 641 horsepower setup from the Ioniq 5N, along with all of that car's other performance enhancements, just with more luxurious tuning, so count on a softer ride. Obviously, probably maybe slightly less aggressive seats, things like that, but, you know, still have that same performance, just in a more comfortable package, which I think there's a certain market for sure. And they only said that this one will come soon, but they didn't get any more specific as far as, you know, when that is coming. But again, since it looks so close to production, I would assume this is going to come, you know, if not for 2025 model year, then maybe for the 2026 model year, but should come pretty soon. And so interesting to hear that. And beyond the Magma cars here, Genesis also showed off the Neolun concept, which is likely showing off the GV90 that has been strangely missing in the lineup. And it takes the same kind of concept styling we've seen from other recent Genesis concepts and applies it to what is likely a 3-row SUV whenever the production version comes, with an option probably for a very luxurious second-row version. And that's also the idea of a very luxurious second-row version also seems likely, since Genesis suggested that the rear coach doors could actually show up on the production version. The interior on this concept is pretty lavish and bold as well, and even includes a flexible screen that can roll up or down depending on what you're using it for. It also has swivel seats, which may also make it to production in Korea at least, but probably won't here since the Korean Kia EV9 has those for the second row, but our version here in the States doesn't get that. And so this concept has heated panels almost everywhere, including on the real wood flooring. And there's lots of interesting ideas here. You know, I mean, there's been talks. Ford's also done patents for like heating a lot of different things like the seatbelt and stuff, just to warm you up without having to use blower fans and generating heat, since that's so much more wasteful in EVs, and just heating all the elements instead to get you warm. So maybe we will see some of that actually come to production. Whether it'll be as extensive as this concept or not, we'll have to see. But lots of interesting ideas, and we'll see what ends up making it with the production version. But very cool to see that. Hyundai also had 2 production reveals here in New York. So the first is the 2025 Santa Cruz. It gets a tweaked front end, new wheels, and not much else on the outside unless you go for the new XRT trim, which adds all-terrain tires on unique wheels, a unique front bumper that provides a better approach angle, and tow hooks. There's a unique grille, rear bumper, plus XRT badges, of course. The inside is the bigger change, getting the dual 12.3-inch screen setup in the curved enclosure, the steering wheel, HVAC controls, all that stuff that we first saw on the Kona and now in the Santa Fe. One switch from the other Hyundais with this interior, though, is that they've retained the console-mounted shifter instead of the steering column one like all the other new Hyundais are getting. It gets all the other new stuff from the Santa Fe too, like the fingerprint scanner, driver monitoring system, phone as key tech, and faster USB-C ports. One great improvement is that with the new screens comes the new software that will finally provide wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. The 2025 Santa Cruz will arrive this summer, but there's no pricing for that one either. The other Hyundai refresh here is the 2025 Tucson, and this one we already saw months ago for the Korean version, and like usual, it all transfers over here, with the only change being our government mandated orange marker lights. For those that missed the last reveal, though, it gets a slightly tweaked front end with a new lighting arrangement, a new rear bumper, a bigger rear wiper, and new wheels, and an XRT trim that now gives you raised roof rails and that same wheel and tire package as the Santa Cruz. It too gets the same interior as the other new Hyundais, with the same dash, screen, center console, and HVAC controls again. They're really like exactly copy and pasting this stuff. I kind of wish there was a little more unique flavor to each model on the inside there, but it's a good interior, and so, you know, I guess I can't blame them. But higher trims will get the column-mounted shifter on the Tucson here, while lower trims will continue to use the console-mounted one, just like in the Kona. Mechanically, it's all carryover, other than the hybrid getting a slightly stronger electric motor that now gives you 5 more horsepower for totals of 231 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque now. And the regular gas Tucson will arrive in June, with the hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions coming late this summer. And there's no pricing for those ones yet either. Moving on from New York here, Ford has teased a 60th anniversary edition of the Mustang that'll debut exactly 60 years after the original on April 17th. Ford says it'll only be an appearance package though, so nothing to get too excited about. But, you know, it's good to see them still doing an anniversary thing, because I honestly didn't think they would really do too many more nods to the past. So this is actually a little bit of a surprise, and, you know, hopefully it'll be a nice looking package. So interesting to hear that. Nissan has revealed some big plans here this week, and it wasn't with Fisker. I'll get to Fisker in a few minutes. But anyway, what Nissan did announce was that it'll debut 30 new cars globally by 2027, 16 hybrids and EVs, and 14 gas-powered cars. And it teased 25 of the 30 in a giant CGI lineup driving, down a computer-generated road there. But out of all of these, 7 will be all new models for the U.S. And in the U.S., the plan is to refresh 78% of the lineup and introduce plug-in hybrids as well as e-power models, which are like the Ram Charger and use a gas engine to keep the electric motors going. Other markets will be getting different amounts of refresh products, and for example, Middle East will be getting 5 new SUVs, Africa will get 2, there's a small truck that's likely for Oceania and that whole region. The 2 we know for sure that are coming here are a new Leaf and a new Maxima. Those, they said the Maxima story isn't over and all that, so those are 2 safe bets. And as far as EVs goes, Nissan also says they hope to reach cost parity with gas cars by 2030, and that they're still planning to debut their solid-state batteries in either 2028 or 2029, along with also working on improved nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries that charge 50% faster and are 50% more energy dense than what the Aria currently has, and they're also working on a lower cost lithium iron phosphate battery that will reduce costs by 30% compared to their current electric Sakura K car that they have in Japan. So hopefully all those new debuts help, and even the new kicks we saw last week shows some promise for this revamped Nissan, and those silhouettes and those blurry little shots we get of each of the cars there, looks like there's some fun, exciting shapes and designs. Obviously we haven't seen the other 5 that they're hiding. I'm hoping those 5 are maybe a new round of sports cars, we'll see. But anyway, I'm hoping that, this really helps Nissan to turn themselves around. Another promising thing that Nissan told Autoblog this past week is that the idea of an Xterra is being very actively considered, according to Nissan America's Senior Vice President and Chief Planning Officer, and said that if they were to do it, it's got to be authentic and a serious truck. So, we're talking about something that actually lives up to the original and is not just a crossover with the Xterra badge slapped on it, which makes a lot of sense. And, taking a company's most likely, mid-sized trucks and turning them into an SUV that's literally just a cab on the back of it, it makes a ton of sense. Everyone just wanted Chevy to do that with the Blazer. Take the Colorado, finish off the back end, call it a day, throw the Blazer name on it, and everyone would have been way happier with that than the current gas Blazer and the electric one that we have now. So, this seems like a no-brainer thing that other companies for some reason haven't done, and maybe Nissan's wondering why, maybe there's a good reason why, but from the outside looking in, this seems like an excellent idea, a great cheap way to bring something that everyone wants and do it in the way that everyone wants it done anyway. Seems like a home run, so I'm glad they're considering this. He also said, which is even better news, that lastly, a new Xterra would need to be relatively inexpensive, which also suggests that it'll again be based on an existing truck platform, which with Titan going away means we're talking about Frontier, and it's just seems like easy money. So again, if it's also cheap, if we're talking Frontier-ish prices, and then you make it an Xterra that's really credible off-road and all that kind of stuff, at least as much as a Frontier is, I think that people would love that, especially if the styling was good. There was that one concept that they showed off, which maybe gives us a little bit of an idea of what they might be thinking for a rugged SUV. I'm not sure, but sounds fantastic. And hearing these kinds of discussions going on within Nissan is also what makes me hopeful that they are really turning this around, that they're going to have exciting stuff in the future that's really going to bring the appeal back to the Nissan brand beyond just the Z and the GTR, So, this is great. And so interesting to hear that. Mercedes this week has revealed the refreshed gas version of the G-Wagon, and so it has most of the same styling, all the same capability, but does lose the V8 for a 3-liter inline-6 turbo with a mild hybrid system instead, but it's still called the G550, interestingly. It does 443 horsepower and 413 pound-feet of torque, which is 27 more horsepower than the V8, but 37 less pound-feet of torque. There's still hope for V8 fans, though, as the G63 version still gets the 4-liter twin-turbo V8, R8 that does the same 577 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque as before, even though it does add a 48-volt mild hybrid system as well. That one will do a 4.5 seconds 0 to 60, but it can go down to 4.2 seconds if you get the AMG Performance Pack that adds in launch control and raises top speed to 150 miles per hour, which you'd have to be crazy to do in a G-Wagon, in my opinion. Another new addition to the G63 is the AMG Active Ride Control System that first debuted on the SL, and it uses hydraulics instead of roll bars to, make the ride even better, but also improve off-road capability most likely. And if you want the power but want something more off-road capable, an AMG Off-Road Package Pro gives you more drive modes, 20-inch wheels with all-terrain tires, and a roof rack complete with a ladder. The inside gets some nice improvements as well, with a touchscreen being added finally, along with the new steering wheel design there that we've seen on all the other Mercedes. And there's no info on when it'll arrive exactly, but it is a 2025 model year vehicle, so it should come fairly soon. We don't have any pricing for that one yet either. And the electric version is still on the way. It sounds like it is still proceeding as planned, even though Mercedes is backpedaling on other electric stuff. Electric G-Wagon still seems to be happening on the same timeline, so I'm assuming we'll get some more info on that maybe later this year. We'll have to see, but interesting to see that. And another retro-inspired vehicle that may get multiple powertrains here soon is the Fiat 500. So even though the new 500e is one of the best-selling EVs in Europe, it's really done well and consistently been doing about 77,000 units a year, by the way. It's not reaching the 90,000 units a year that Fiat has wanted, and add to that the fact that the 17-year-old gas 500 that's currently still sold over there did 100,000 units still last year and has to end production in June due to the same EU cybersecurity law requirements that require like a newer electrical system in the vehicle. It's the same reason why the gas-powered Macan, Cayman, and Boxster are also going away from Europe here in the next couple of months. And so, according to Automotive News Europe, because of all of these factors along with others, Fiat is considering re-engineering the 500e platform to fit a gas engine. And the holdup, though, is that it would probably take about 2 years or maybe a little less than that to do this. And Fiat, at least for now, is still committed to a fully electric future in Europe and being fully electric in Europe by 2030. So if they do hold to that, which is a big if because, again, we've seen everyone else backpedaling. But if they do hold to that, then this new gas platform only would have about 4 years or so to pay itself off without being a money loser for them, assuming it even does as well as they're hoping it would do, and people don't just end up buying the electric version as those catch on more and more. But, we'll see what ends up happening with that. And so for those that are curious too, another fun little fact is that the current gas 500 will continue to live on past June with its production moving from Poland to Algeria, where it'll continue to be built and sold for the Middle East and Africa. So it's cool that car is going to get a longer life and continue to do its thing elsewhere, and that's great. And for here in the United States, the new 500e is, I think, showing up here really soon, like in the coming days or weeks. So those should start arriving really, really soon. I'm hoping to review one at some point here this year. And I'm excited for that new little 500e to finally come here to the States as well. And maybe that'll help boost their sales a little bit too. One other vehicle that might not live much longer, though, is the Fisker Ocean. Fisker. So the whole Fisker company might not live much longer. So it was another bad week here for Fisker. I talked about their troubles last week. And this week they confirmed that their talks with a large automaker, which is most likely Nissan, have fallen apart, and trading of its stock was even halted as well this past week. And so last week I mentioned how they had about 4,700 unsold cars in inventory and then halted production. I don't know why it took them so long, or maybe they just couldn't stop it for whatever reason until then, but so they currently have production halted until they can clear out these cars. Back last week I said that with all their issues and the company's bad trajectory, they'd basically have to give these things away for free, because you're not going to be able to get any kind of support or parts or servicing for these things if this company goes belly up, this year or whenever. And so this week, I said they have to give, or last week I said they'd have to give them away for free. And this week they got closer to doing that because they announced that there's an offer here they're claiming for 2023 Oceans for as low as $25,000 they're offering them for, which is a price cut of $14,000 on that base trim and a cut of $24,000 for the top extreme trim, which now maxes out at $37,500. So, the funny thing is, even if you got lucky enough to have maybe one of the mythical Fisker Oceans that doesn't have problems, at least yet, you're still in a very bad shape because your car has just basically halved its value overnight with this announcement. It's already, EVs values are already falling off a cliff for a lot of them anyway, and this especially is just going to go to zero, I feel like. And so in Motor One, though, they actually tried to inquire about, hey, kid, could we get one of these $25,000 Oceans, whether they're serious or not? But they tried to look into it, and it sounded like, according to Fisker employees, they don't have any of the base ones in inventory, which makes it seem like maybe this is a disingenuous offer, and they don't actually have a $25,000 Ocean to sell anyone, and it's just to make headlines and get people like me talking about it and have people, look into the brand. They said that with the options that most of these cars have on them and stuff, they're all going to be more than that by a good bit. So again, maybe they're just trying to drum up some interest here, but it's just, it's an interesting ride here. We will see how this continues to play out, but man, it has been a rough month for Fisker, that is for sure. And it's not often you see companies just kind of imploding right before your eyes in quick fashion. So unfortunately, I always wish the best for every car company, but this doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. Anyway, moving on here, McLaren is another company that had some financial issues in the past few years, but it sounds like hopefully they're in a better place now after this past week's news that Bahrain's Sovereign Wealth Fund, which previously owned 60% of McLaren, has now bought the other 40% and owns McLaren completely now. So McLaren's executive chairman said this will further enable us to to focus on delivering our long-term business plan. And just a few days after the news, they teased their future styling direction here with a side silhouette that doesn't tell us too much, but looks a bit more curvaceous than the current cars if they do stick close to this sketch, which is a big stretch. I'm sure they probably won't. This is just dramatized. But anyway, they also say that their future interiors will have wraparound cockpits and concave surfaces, and it's rumored that their new hypercar will show up at some point this year, but hopefully McLaren and their financial issues, hopefully all that stuff is behind them, and all of McLaren's stuff is going to be a brighter future here going forward. We'll have to wait and see. Also, Aston Martin, who's had a somewhat rocky past few years here with the revolving door of CEOs that they've had. Since 2020, they've had 4 CEOs, I believe. This week, they announced that their current CEO, Amedeo Felisa, will be replaced by, at least by October 1st, if not sooner, by Adrian Hallmark, who is the former CEO of Bentley. And so it sounds like Mr. Hallmark will be a great choice, since Bentley's had a nice rebound here in the past couple of years, with him leading Bentley to their second best year ever last year for sales. And I believe 2022 might have been their best year ever, if I remember correctly. But I mean, Bentley's doing super well, and it's, a lot of it is thanks to his leadership, I think. And so hopefully, he'll have the same effect here on Aston Martin and really help them boost their profits and allow them to, be a really impressive company, even more than I think they already are. With, they have all kinds of fresh new products already coming here. And I think that, with his leadership, hopefully they will continue to, again, be on the upward swing here and, be in a better place here than they, have been in the past. So anyway, great to hear that. But for the last news story here this week, one supercar that sadly did come to an end here this last week was the Audi R8. Officially is done with the final car, a Vegas Yellow V10 Performance Quattro Edition Coupe, rolling off the line and straight into Audi's private collection. Production was supposed to end last year, but there was a huge spike in demand whenever they announced that it was truly ending here. So they briefly extended production here into the 2024 model year. And sadly, though, this it seems to be the end of the R8 name as well forever, with rumors of a potential new supercar coming in the late 2020s. But according to Autocar's Audi insiders, the R8 name won't return for that car. So it's a shame. It's been a good run. And it's always sad to see a great car go, especially one that sounds as good as this did, especially with the V10. And despite the second generation, being overshadowed by the Huracan, which was a little edgier and maybe more exciting to a lot of people, the R8 seemed like a great car. The first generation was fantastic. I did drive that. Again, if you just watched my video on my detailing years, I will link that at the end of this one if you want to watch that. I've had some experience with the first gen R8. But the second gen never had a chance to drive. They always seemed great, and I always kind of appreciated it as a more low key supercar while still having all the same perks of the Huracan pretty much. And so yeah, sad to see them go, but it's been a good run. They've been around and been in production for a long time, even for this generation. So it's had a good run, but always sad to see it go. And I would have a drink to cheers it, but this is early afternoon, very early afternoon here. I'm filming this, and while it's 5 o'clock somewhere, not going to have a drink for the R8 here this week. But for anyone watching this later, I'll do a virtual cheers with you. Pour one out for the R8 because it's a great car, and always sad to see it go. But lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have one new member that was able to join this past week, thanks to the very generous membership gifts that were given by Kyle and the Truck and Car Guy in last week's live stream. So again, huge thanks to both of your generosity every week. Everyone really appreciates it, and I'm sure many of the members that were able to rejoin also are very appreciative. But I also want to give a big welcome to the new member, Hyper Shadow 87. I hope you're enjoying the membership perks here so far, Hyper, and yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully chatting with you and everyone else that's a member this Saturday on the live stream, where all those members do get that priority answering. If you'd also like that priority answering as well as all the other membership perks, there's always join buttons here on the channel page, on the video page, and also a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.